Welcome to our community. Susie Thomas with you this morning. So happy to welcome Linda Chen and Scott Watkins. They are from the Audubon Society. Is it Stark County or Canton Audubon Society?
Canton Audubon Society. However, we cover Stark County, Tusk, Carroll. We cover like parts of 9 counties. The name is a little deceiving.
Okay, so forget the Canton part, because if you are within the sound of my voice, this is your Audubon Society, right?
Very possible, yes.
And some people might still wonder what you do, where you meet, all about you. So tell me a little bit about the history of the organization. You've been around for how long?
Well, we've been around since 1962, and we are a nonprofit organization. We're 501c3, and what we do, pretty much our mission is to conserve birds, the natural environment, and to educate people of all ages about these issues, the issues that surround birds. There are lots of problems with birds and pretty much everything that goes along with that.
Do you actually do bird watching?
We do, yeah. We have regular programs where we go and do bird walks. We go to different events to actually do citizen science and count birds, as we just finished this last weekend with what they call the Great Backyard Bird Count. And we do lots of events where we actually go to different national parks, state parks, and watch birds, look for birds.
Now, why would we count birds? What's important about that?
We count the birds to get a overall number of how many birds are existing at natural areas, and all this data is input from around the world into a program from Cornell University in New York. It's called eBird.org. And you do that so they can get a feel over time how these bird populations are changing, whether they're increasing, declining, and unfortunately we see a lot of declines because of different reasons. But
well, let's go into that. Why are we seeing declines in bird populations?
A lot of things change. Most of the biggest thing is the habitat destruction from mankind. It's a lot of things from man, a lot of things maybe not created by mankind. Changes in climate that we see. The different populations are moving or they're not able to move quick enough. And because most birds migrate from north to south, losing that habitat to stop over while they're migrating definitely causes a change in the populations and where they can fly and where they can land.
I called you here because I had read that it was bird feeding month. That February actually was bird feeding month. It's national, and I know we're starting here on March 1st. So we've just finished up National Bird Feeding Month, but it's still important to be feeding those birds who do not migrate south, correct? What would be the birds that are around? Who's left?
Well, first of all, you also have birds that come here in the winter because they're in Canada, for instance, and it's a lot more difficult for them to find food to eat. A lot of them are seed eaters, but it's still a lot harder. The weather's rougher, a lot more snow, and a lot of those certain breeds or species, they are in the sparrow family. A lot of them are diggers, and they like to scratch around and look for seed. So those birds come here. When you're feeding seed to your local birds, the cardinals, the ones we see, blue jays, woodpeckers, etc., those birds are here right now as well. And so when you're feeding them in the winter, you're feeding migratory birds. Basically, all year round, whenever you're feeding birds, you're also feeding the migrants that happen to be here for that season.
How do we feed birds and not feed squirrels?
That is a good question to ask, because squirrels are the masterminds of attacking bird feeders. And there's various ways you can do it. There's various devices. They have squirrel-proof feeders that sometimes prevent them from getting as much seed out of it. They have stands that are higher and actually prevent the squirrels from climbing the poles. And there's lots of different ways, squirrel-proof feeders that you can use that make it harder for the squirrels to get to the seed.
Okay,
There's also supposedly certain types of seed like safflower. There's certain types of seed that supposedly squirrels don't like and prefer not to eat, although I have read where people say, well, the squirrels are eating the safflower seed, but that is one way you can go. It's kind of maybe not as palatable to them.
Feed them this. Okay. Now, I've seen some real fun ways to feed birds. Like one was making a ball out of suet, I guess, and then rolling it around in seed and just hang that. There's the cute little houses that, the kids and grandkids build and hang from trees and just put a little something in. What's best? What's a good way to feed the bird? Or let me ask this. Are there some ways that are better to feed birds than others?
Do you mean for children to be making something, or you're saying in general? For kids to make, those are probably all great ideas. People take pine cones, rub peanut butter on them, and roll them in seed. Those are great, I think, crafts or things for kids in that way.
And does it really work for the birds?
Sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you're using the right sources of food, putting those out for the birds is a very temporary but good supply, especially when you roll it in peanut butter and seeds and stuff like that. That's great food for birds. It's not a long-term feeding unless you're doing it every day, but definitely doing those crafts definitely helps.
Okay. Now, say we're going to really get serious about this, go shopping and find the ultimate bird feeder. What's good?
Well, one of the ultimate bird feeders, if you're just starting out, it's probably nice to get a feeder that's possibly enclosed, maybe like the plexiglass sides that'll keep the seed dry, but that has a large perch or landing on it, because you will get the big birds that come in and they are like the masters, of the feeder, and they will take over. So if you have an area with a large perch for multiple birds to land, you'll be more inclined to get different birds on the feeder. It won't be as there won't be as much fighting over it. But that's the one thing you'll have to realize, that certain birds are a little more dominant when it comes to that food. Until they're done, then the other birds will fly in. But
whatever they leave behind, other birds can.
And black oil sunflower seed is the all-round best seed to be purchasing, because pretty much all birds can get through the hull and eat that seed. So that's, I would say, generally large feeder, have it enclosed so the seed doesn't get wet from weather, large platform, black oil sunflower seed. That to me is the best thing to start out with.
Okay. And do they have any an opening? What about size of opening that they get into the enclosed part?
Well, generally it's kind of an enclosed-in area, 4 sides generally, and then there's a platform out around it, and there's a little area under those little, I guess, plexiglass walls. There's an opening, and the seed sort of slides out.
Okay.
And as the seed slides out onto the platform area, the birds will just take it from there. So it kind of naturally falls out to them.
Okay. Now I've got it in my head of what that looks like. All right. With the black oil sunflower seed in the bottom, what else should we know about good food for the birds?
Well, okay, good food. Well, there's plenty of different types of food. There is, in the winter, suet. Suet's a great food. It will attract things like woodpeckers. Blue jays will be able to land on the feeders. Carolina wrens. There's a whole slew of different types of birds that will land. They're generally in a little screen kind of box-shaped thing, and you put a little, what's called a cake, a suet cake. It's basically a block of suet. And that is a great winter food, especially when it's super cold. It's fats. It's mostly animal fat, and then there'll be seeds mixed in with it. So that's a great resource for birds in the winter. Birds love peanuts, and squirrels unfortunately do too.
Right.
But peanuts, they'll take the whole peanuts, and you'll have some fun watching them try to break the seeds open, or you can get shelled peanuts that are just the pieces of peanut. Those are loved by birds too. Those are probably good winter foods because they're high fat. Scott, do you?
No, I totally agree with you. I think, and it depends on the type of birds you want to bring to your feeder and what type of habitat you have around you. If you're near a forest, if you're near a wetlands, if you're just near in a local suburban area, what type of birds you're looking to attract as to what seed you're putting out there.
It seems like such a great family activity to be able to attract different kinds of birds, and I would think that children would love getting to see all the different kinds. And then you can take pictures and learn about them. And what would we expect to draw? Who is around that we would see at this time of year? As far as birds, types,
okay.
Types of birds.
Types of birds. Geez, we have the usual backyard birds, like I say, the cardinals, blue jays, woodpeckers. There's a whole slew of different birds, but you're also bringing in, you're going to see birds such as juncos, white-throated sparrow, song sparrows, field sparrows,
Right.
American
tree sparrows is one of the ones that are here.
And those are native. These are not the house sparrows that you see in the large groups at, the big box stores. These are native birds, and they're pretty much, a lot of them are coming from Canada because it's hard to find seed. They love seed. The one thing that they really like, as well as mourning doves, which are wonderful birds, I think, is the white millet. You can buy that. You can buy it in songbird mixes. Not Milo, but white millet. It's kind of a little tiny yellow seed.
Okay.
You will attract plenty of birds that actually, surprisingly, eat that. Towhees. I don't know, maybe you can throw some other names out there, Scott.
And these birds stay here all winter long because this is as far south as they're going. This is south to them because a lot of them are from Canada.
Yeah, they can go farther south, too. A lot of birds, when they migrate, they'll go to the same place every year. If they're successful in finding food in the winter, they remember where food is, and they remember who feeds.
Okay, and
Yes.
that
Yes.
brought me to one of my original questions before we went on the air. Sometimes people are afraid to get started because they're thinking, I won't be able to keep it up. And I've heard that if you are putting out food for the birds, don't stop because they remember where you are and they know your address and they are counting on you.
Well, when it's really, really cold out, like we've had some really bad weather, it's great to continue to feed the birds because it is rough. It's rough for us even walking outside. So if you're living out there and you're looking for food, it's not easy. So if you're really going to feed the birds, that is the best time when it's cold and harsh, rainy. But birds, they stop at a bunch of different feeders in the neighborhoods. You're not generally the only person feeding. They will survive. They survived for thousands of years without your backyard feeder. If you're going to go away and you're going to go on vacation, don't fret that, oh my gosh, the birds aren't going to survive without me.
So go ahead and feed the birds.
Right.
And if you're going on vacation, it's okay. Your neighbors are probably feeding the birds.
Possibly. And if you're
Okay.
really that worried, ask a friend to come and fill it up now and then.
True.
But they will. I'll tell you what. When you come back and they start seeing that, they'll stop by and check your feeders. And if they're producing seed again now, they come back very quickly.
What do birds do who have no humans? And what would they survive if none of us put out food for them?
Yes, they would. They'd simply migrate to another area that has a better food supply. And in this case, maybe further south where there is a more natural habitat that's open. I mean, of course, all the areas we see around us that are filled by buildings and shopping malls and stuff used to be natural habitat. So now they don't have as much as that. And that's why feeding the birds is important, to give them that food source that we, as humans, have moved to another place or destroyed in some ways.
Yeah.
What do birds do for us?
Well, one big thing that people overlook, birds eat a lot of insects. The spring nesters go through thousands and thousands of insects that we complain about them, but if you didn't have birds and bats, we would be overwhelmed and overrun with just, phenomenal amount of insects. Nesting birds specifically love caterpillars to feed their babies. Tiny little chickadee nest of a family in their 16-day nesting cycle can eat like 6,000 caterpillars.
What?
In that
really?
Yeah, they consume a lot.
Goodness.
They love bugs. They eat lots and lots of bugs. It's like
flies.
But then
definitely
does that mean we have no butterflies?
mosquitoes.
No, not necessarily caterpillars and butterflies, but all
Okay.
different kinds of insects that do it, between the larvae of flies, mosquitoes, different types of bugs.
Great.
They chase them down. Locusts, they eat, cardinals, so we take out the locust right in flight.
Great.
And they also do a lot as in spreading seed. So they eat the seed, it germinates through their system, and they get rid of it, and it ends up spreading that seed across different places. So all these natural plants get moved from area to area just by simply birds eating that seed that you're providing them.
That's so neat. And when we finally see that robin, does that mean spring is finally here?
Well, robins and bluebirds, we always
Oh, yeah, the bluebird is the other one, yes.
associate them with spring, and to some degree there's more of them. Right. But robins and bluebirds, if they have a food source, They will stay all year. And there are certain plant species that hold a fruit, like a berry, all year long. There's different types of plants. And some of them even the berries kind of get frozen and wilt, and they kind of can ferment, and birds can actually get drunk. Literally.
Really?
Yes.
Really. Actually, a funny story, because I work at Kent State, a funny story that happened up there. Students came across and they were calling about cedar waxwings, which they just seen a whole group of maybe 25 to 30 birds that were just laying on the ground. And they were worried that some kind of mass plague had happened, right? Well, we came to find out it was cedar waxwings, which had eaten fermented berries and basically had gotten drunk and passed out on the ground.
Oh, my goodness. They passed out.
Yeah,
that was all the problem.
Other animals will do that. Possums and raccoons will eat those berries too, and they can the same way. A lot of animals do that.
Never knew. Well, we are learning all kinds of things here this morning. We're visiting with Linda Chen and Scott Watkins. They are from the I'm just going to say Audubon Society because it's Canton Audubon Society, but Tuscarawas County, we are here for you.
Yes.
Right?
For sure.
Yes.
But we do have different regions, and all the different organizations cover different areas. So there's quite a few in Ohio.
Perfect. Oh, good to know.
Yes.
And we are going to be back with them about real exciting things taking place here. But first, these words. You're listening to Our Community.